NATO chief urges Seoul to change policy on arms exports. China and Korea slam Stoltenberg. Warn of new Cold War. NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg has urged South Korea to change its arms exports policy to support Ukraine. I urge the Republic of Korea to continue and step up the specific issue of military support. Several NATO allies who had a policy never to export weapons to countries in conflict have changed that policy now. Stoltenberg said countries like Germany, Norway and Sweden had also revised their policies to help Ukraine. Stoltenberg reportedly said that, at the end of the day, it is a decision for you to make, but I will say that several NATO allies who have had a policy to never export weapons to countries in conflict have changed that policy now. When the full-fledged invasion happened last year, many countries changed their policy because they realized that the only way to stand up for democracy, to help Ukraine prevail, and to create the conditions for a lasting peace was to deliver military support. Stoltenberg was on a two-day visit to South Korea and met with President Yoon Suk-yeol. He also visited Japan as the U.S. boosts ties with the region's allies in the face of the Ukraine conflict and tensions with China. Speaking at the Chey Institute for Advanced Studies in Seoul, Stoltenberg thanked South Korea for its non-lethal aid to Ukraine. However, he says if allies do not want autocracy and tyranny to win, then the Ukrainians needs weapons. That's the reality. The U.S. and its allies this month pledged main battle tanks such as Abrams, Leopards and Challengers to Ukraine. With Russia's invasion nearing the year-long mark, the West is struggling to keep up with Ukraine's ammunition needs. As per the New York Times, South Korea has already agreed to a secret deal with the U.S. to provide artillery shells to Ukraine. The shells would replenish American stocks elsewhere, in line with the Seoul's public pledge of non-lethal aid to Ukraine. Exports can only be used for peaceful purposes and shall not affect international peace, safety maintenance, and national security. Seoul is also a signatory to the UN Arms Trade, ratified in 2014 to keep a check on who gets arms and conditions for their use. President Yoon denied providing any lethal arms to Ukraine, after Russia warned such a move would damage bilateral ties. However, President Yoon became the first South Korean leader to attend a NATO summit last June amid Russia's war on Ukraine. As a new structure of competitions and conflicts is taking shape, there is also a movement that denies the universal values that we have been protecting. Meanwhile, South Korea has signed major weapons deal with NATO members and Ukraine allies like Poland. Last year, South Korea opened its first diplomatic mission to NATO, vowing to deepen cooperation. Jens Stoltenberg also discussed security and the Ukrainian conflict with South Korea's foreign ministry in Seoul. During the talks with Park Jin, Stoltenberg said that the security of NATO and South Korea are more and more interconnected. Stoltenberg warned a Russian win in Ukraine would send a dangerous message to authoritarian leaders all over the world. It is extremely important that President Putin does not win this war. Partly because it will be tragedy for the Ukrainians, but it will also be dangerous for all of us. It will make the world more dangerous. Because of the message to the authoritarian leaders, also in this part of the world, also in Beijing, will be that use of force is the way to get what you want. Although not a NATO adversary, China has become much higher on NATO's agenda, he said, citing Beijing's military-industrial complex. We believe that we should engage with China on issues like arms control, climate change, and other issues. But at the same time, we are very clear that China poses a challenge to our values, to our interests, and to our security. Seoul and Tokyo have stepped up ties with NATO aimed nuclear and missile threats from North Korea and growing tensions with China. Experts says the growing partnership reflects shared concerns about China's military build-up. Stoltenberg is also likely to voice support for Tokyo's decision to approve a defense budget, the same level for which NATO member states pledged to aim. Meanwhile, the Chinese Foreign Ministry urged NATO to shun its Cold War mentality and the concept of bloc confrontation. North Korea called Stoltenberg's visit a prelude to war as it brings the dark clouds of a new Cold War to the Asia-Pacific region.